team for doing that, because it's very important for our successes to be shared and to actually leapfrog for others to use. The other one is the macro level. This is the one that is very frustrating in the sense of, I don't want to be political, but...
Please, you can.
So our geopolitics is very, again, going back to the sense of privilege. It's very easy for us to sit here and, talk about all these great ideas, but we are in an environment that's very suffocating as us as Africans. In terms of the democracy that we wanted to see has not really come to play. And so how do you lead people who are, I wrote something very big here, pessimism. We are in a generation that's now pessimistic, and it's really sad. I remember, not to talk too much, but there's another movement that I'm part of where I see a lot of people here. It's called the Global Shapers Movement, which is part of the World Economic Forum. And we met President Lula, the one who is now again president in Brazil, in 2014. And the one thing he always constantly said was change and truth, right? Funny how that's 8 years ago, or close to, 5-6 years ago, he had to go through that whole process of being arrested, having a defined truth of Brazil, and seeing him come back, and kind of like we're in a phase where people are now starting to realize that the truth that we have been seeing the last few years with Trump and all these things are coming to play, that actually there's something that someone that's driving this agenda. And until we wake up and say that, no, I think we need to control what we actually consume, is a point at which we are very important. So I would say, I think looking at it in that three levels, individual, group, and geopolitical, is very important for the organization to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Donald. So you clearly tell us that this community we're creating is about changing self first at micro, and then having a meso, perspective where we leverage networks. And we had a very vulnerable moment there where I can see that these conversations are happening across borders. It's one of the most amazing things to observe, actually, at the faculty, and we talk about it all the time with OWL, how across most African countries now, we have a voice somewhere that sort of wants to think the same way and conclude about certain issues in a similar way. So, and you're saying there's a gray area there that's really big, and you see that's where we, in a visionary way, want to focus. So after we deal strategically with the micro element and the meso element, now we want to see how to propel this network to become more powerful, to become more impactful in a global way. So, and that's the challenge. I'm going to pose the question to Awel, because you say that we have Afro-pessimists, okay? So I think we are growing a breed of Afro-optimists, people who are eternally optimistic about this continent. But it's a huge challenge, like you said. So Awel, now, where is our Mecca? Where is the fountain where we draw energy so that we do not lose ourselves in this massive forest? Sorry to use that comparison, called Africa. How do we start to see the forest but not lose sight of the trees? Because it gets really, it's working. It gets really frustrating to remain optimistic about this continent, and we are not overly romantic about the situation that we live in, right? We know this, we work in these communities, we live in these countries. She mentioned a moment of frustration, flying into Dubai. Every time I fly into Dubai myself, I continually get challenged because there is massive expansion program that is sort of endless. Lines and lines and rows of highways and high-rise buildings. These guys are just transforming themselves. So Awel, how do we stay sane, man, without drowning?
So I think, like I mentioned in my opening comments, first of all, there's no place in the world you go to and not find a black person. I think, I don't know how that happened, but there was every single part of the world you go to, there will be a black person. And I think this philosophy, going back to the philosophy of Agachiro, which is, like I said, this is an African, so owning our identity as well. So Agachiro should not be just